you've written a powerful piece, a book called The Bold World. Let me ask you quite simply, why did you write this book?
To share something that I had just learned that was mind-blowing to me. I didn't know that gender could be in so many forms. I didn't know that gender was fluid. I didn't know that gender wasn't attached to the body, which to me, now that we've talked about it for several years and we understand the terminology, transgender, gender fluid. But 10 years ago, I didn't know, those words weren't as readily used. And so when I found out that my child was actually my son, right? If my daughter is actually my son, what else in the world don't I know?
Right.
Mind blowing.
That will make you rethink several things.
Everything. And I had to, and I couldn't, and it wasn't about prying into my son. I had to really, to understand his identity, I had to look at mine, because we're all in relationship to each other as humans. Yeah. And so the book is really just me exploring who I am and what made me, and all these ideas of race and gender. I wanted to share it.
So your son comes to you and says, who was at the time a daughter, but your son comes to you and says, says what, by the way? How old was he and what did he say?
So I'll tell you, there were 3 years prior to that. It wasn't just one day the child comes and says something out of the blue. 3 years, first year of life, second year, and going into the third, everything was traumatic. We had nail biting until bloody, reoccurring nightmares, bedwetting, screaming, fighting, temper tantrums. The child was a bully against other kids. And I thought I had a girl, because anatomically, the baby looked like a girl. The doctor said girl. I looked at the child, said girl. So I was raising a girl, and I thought, and that child was so upset for 3 years. And so finally I asked Penelope, what's wrong? Why are you so angry? And Penelope said, Mama, because everyone thinks I'm a girl and I'm not, I am a boy. That was the sentence. And I thought, okay, here we have a tomboy, here we have a feminist. I thought we had a feminist who was recognizing the differences between how girls and boys were treated. And so I said, however you feel is fine. If you want to act like your brothers, go ahead. And my child said, no, Mom, I don't feel like a boy. I am a boy. At 3 years old.
And what was your reaction when that comes out of his mouth?
Well, honestly, I thought I had failed still. And a lot of parents feel that it is a reflection of themselves and a reflection of something they didn't do. I thought that I had failed to raise a proud girl. I'm from a line of really proud women, and we love being women. And so I thought I had forgotten to teach this child about Shirley Chisholm and Billie Jean King and Nina Simone and Maya Angelou, all the great women who changed America for the better. But the more I tried to insist that Penelope be this smart, beautiful girl, Penelope got sadder and pulled back and refused touch. And then eventually said, I don't want tomorrow to come. So that's when you have to shift. And you talk about shifting, right? And trailblazing and going in a different direction, like that young 13-year-old entrepreneur just did. Sometimes the direction we're heading in works. And then when it doesn't, we have to shift. And at that point, I realized I could lose my child. And the shift had to come. It had to come.
And when you say lose your child, what you mean, just so the audience is clear, is that this gender discovery was or repression at the time was killing the soul of Penelope, and he wanted, or at least you perceived him to be considering, as he said to you, ending his life. So it was a life or death situation as you understood it. Am I right about that?
As I understood it, those words were very clear to me. I don't want tomorrow to come, Mama, because tomorrow I'll look like you. And so
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question about you, because I think Penelope's story is a remarkable one, and more it's becoming commonly heard. I wouldn't say more common, because I think it's always been the case. We're just able to talk about it more. But this question is about you and about your process and your journey with this. Did you grieve the loss of your daughter?
I will say I did not. I know a lot of my friends who have trans children have grieved. And I have a lot of friends who are trans and they grieved the life that they had that is no longer there. But with my life and with Penelope's life and the way we chose it, it didn't feel like a death, because essentially Penelope is the same being. I just changed my language. I just changed I allowed Penelope to wear jeans. And so I said he instead of she. And I never had to, one Penelope didn't have to die for the next Penelope to emerge. I just said, wait a minute, I must have made the mistake. You're perfect, baby. I made the mistake with my language. And when you think about it, there's so many languages that don't even use gender. They don't have a she or a he. So my family is from Ghana. Part of my family is from Ghana. And in the language of Twi, there's no gender pronoun. So to change it from he to she, it's just language. And I really use that in my mind, that I'm not losing my child. I'm changing my language. And Penelope is the same spirit that God brought me, period.
Now I'm going to push you a little bit and ask you, if someone said to you that Penelope was way too young at 3 years old or 4 years old to make this decision or make this announcement, and or for you to take it seriously, what would you say to that?
Several things. When was the first time, I'm going to ask you, when was the first time you realized you were a boy?
Me? Immediately.
Yeah, so we just know. Can you pinpoint the exact moment? Hard to say, right? You just know it.
Hard to say.
So, right. So I would say, when people say Penel was too young to know that he is a boy, I would say, well, when did you know you were a boy or a man or a woman or a girl? We just know these things. And so I just took Penelope on Penelope's word, number one, because we underestimate children. We underestimate their validity.
Hold on, Jody. Push back number two. I get one more. Pushback number two. Pushback number two is, if someone said to you, all right, Penelope at 3 or 4 feels what feels now, what happens at 16 or 17 if a different sensibility or feeling comes over?
I flow with that too. Whatever Penelope says about himself is what we do. So it's called self-determination, Kujichagulia. We learned this in Kwanzaa. Come on, guys. Self-determination allows the individual to claim who they are. And if that identity shifts, so be it. And we know now, we're smart enough to know identities shift. They are not stationary. And so how Penelope sees himself at 4 is fine. And if it changes at 17, that's fine too.
You know, what I love about you and what I love about this story is the radical love with which you have embraced the journey of your child. And especially in the Black community, where so many children who are LGBTQ are rejected, turned aside, dismissed, sublimated by parents and communities that won't affirm, not accept, because acceptance is, that's petty to me. I'm talking about affirming what a person is. Exactly what a person is. That's why I love what you've done, is that you are blazing a trail about how much are we willing to say that we love our children and then do the heartbreak of living it out when our children take us beyond. It's an amazing thing, because sometimes life will take you beyond the resources that it gave you to interpret it itself with. And that's
for sure. And our children are always going to complicate things for us. And usually we don't have the time for it. And so we just, shut down the complication real quick. But anyone who has had death in front of them understands we can't underestimate that. And so, of course, for 2-3 years, I said, no, you're a girl, of course. For 2-3 years, I just kept insisting, if I drill down on my vision, and this girl will be fine. But the more I did that, the worse it got. And so at a certain point, you have to realize the only thing we're here to do is promote life. That's it.